Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Friday morning. Well, the Utah Mammoth do it again. They get beat. And they've only won 2 of their last 11 games after falling to Vegas 4-1. A bad second period. They get outscored 3-1, and they cannot recover. What went wrong? Let's get to the best of the postgame show.
DJ and PK, the Utah Mammoth fell for just the second time at home this season on Thursday night at Delta Center as the Vegas Golden Knights come in and beat Utah by a count of 4-1. It was a scoreless game through 20 minutes. Then Vegas scored twice in the first 4 minutes of the period to take a 2-0 lead after it had been Utah last year taking a 2-0 lead in all 3 games. But the Mammoth would push back 4-on-4 situation just over 3 minutes later, and Nate Schmidt would get his first of the year.
Ian Cole with a nice spin move. He put Theodore in the red cycle. Schmidt wide open, shoots, and scores! Nate Schmidt lasers one past Akira Schmidt. And it's 2-1.
It stayed a 2-1 game for over 10 minutes. And the Mammoth couldn't quite keep the momentum going as a delayed penalty ultimately led to a Jack Eichel breakaway, and the Vegas Stars scored his second of the game to make it 3-1. Vegas then in the first minute of the third made it 4-1, and the Mammoth couldn't quite get over the top in this one. They'll see the Golden Knights again coming up on Monday at Delta Center in Game 3 of this 4-game homestand. Utah, though, back in action on Saturday. The New York Rangers will be here for Hockey Bites Cancer. So the Mammoth now 10-8-3 on the season, and they'll take on a Rangers team who's playing Game 3 of a 3-game road trip and lost in Colorado 6-3 on Thursday night. Let's hear from Utah head coach Andre Tourigny after this one.
Obviously, did not like the way we respond to the emotion of the game. We had a good first period, and then we arrived in the second, and stuff happened to Stanny, and then I didn't like the way we react to it first. And we got emotional, and we got out of our game, and they took over, and we had really difficult for us to get back at it. So that's disappointed. We got carried away, and after we had a push in the third, but it's clear we cannot have 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a few shifts where we lose our focus like that, and that cost us dearly.
What do you want your team to take from this moving forward into tomorrow's practice and into the next game?
Yeah, there's a number of things, but if we cannot control our adversity, is frustration. It's part of the game. We cannot lose our focus like that because a call or a goal or a hit or whatever, we cannot lose our temper and start to run around. You know, Vegas is a good team, and soon we start to run around. They made us pay for it, which is, we need to learn from that. Having that said, there's other things we need to do better in our 5-on-5 games. We need to play way faster. We need to move the puck faster. We need to be more predictable for each other, and it comes from a good place from the player. They want to do more. They want to do great and stuff like that. But often less is more. We need to make sure we play with a lot of pace, play fast. That means moving the puck into space, and skating to sport and those kind of things. But that we'll address that. But the emotion thing, it's a big deal.
How do you, with a young group like this, coach them away from that emotional side of the game and more towards, say, the tactical side? Or
well, I think the game is a good teacher right now. I think that game is it's an example for our group. I think we have a good leadership in that group. We have good guys with experience, guys who've been through stuff. So that will be a good discussion we need to have together. And that group showed when they want to fix things, they put their mind at it. They do it. So that's something that's really important, and we need to take that seriously.
So it was a game where Vegas was really good defensively. They're a strong defensive team. They've never had an elite goaltender, but they've always played really well in front of their net, and they did that on Thursday night, and they got a couple goals from their star, Jack Eichel. But for Utah, it was really how they just responded in momentum situations, in terms of composure, in terms of reacting. Vegas scoring 2 goals in 19 seconds to make it from 1-0 to 2-0, and all 4 of their goals came in big momentum moments on Thursday night in the first 5 minutes of a period or the last 5 minutes of a period. So emotions for Utah were raw. I think they'd like to contain those, channel those a little better, but onward we go. And again, Utah going to see Vegas again coming up on Monday night. Let's hear from Captain Clayton Keller after the contest on Thursday.
I don't know. I think it was a pretty emotional game. Maybe we didn't get some calls maybe that we should have, or there, was some weird ones, but that's part of the game. It's going to happen, and those are things that we have to, be able to tune out and get back to our game quickly. Whether it goes our way or it doesn't. So I think that's something that we can take from the game for sure.
That penalty kill, though, continues to be really strong. What are you seeing out of your guys when they're shorthanded, bringing some momentum back your way?
Yeah, they've been great all year. They have good sticks. Maz does a great job just communicating with the kill and, what the other team's, tendencies are and what they try to do. So I think, they've done, a heck of a job. And, special teams is a big part of the game. And, the power play's got to get going here.
There was some really good movement, great chances on some of these power plays. What is that next step to get those going? Yeah,
I think just, finishing on those chances. And, we were a top 10 power play last year, and, we have the talent in the room and the coaching as well. Faz does a great job as well, running us through video and things like that. So it's definitely on us to, turn the page. Who cares what happened the first 20? It's about the next game, and that's where our focus has got to be at.
So I'm not sure they expected it going into the game, but definitely a big measuring stick game for Utah. And you got Vegas back in 5 days in terms of, just kind of controlling emotion, composure, and seeing how well Vegas plays defensively and seeing how tough they make it to score goals. Because Utah put a lot of pucks in front of the net, but Vegas D were really tough there. In a lot of instances, they never even got to the goalie. So look for maybe your fourth line at Brandon Tanev, Kevin Stenlund, Liam O'Brien to get Utah a goal and see if that can change the tide. Just something greasy out in front, and see if you can beat Vegas, get some momentum coming up that way. Let's hear from Ian Cole, the Utah defenseman, after the contest on Thursday.
Emotion factor. Hockey's an emotional game. If we play to the point in the season in which we want to play to, they're going to be very emotional. The swings are going to be emotional. Highs are going to be great. Lows are going to be are also the opposite, right? Opposite in terms of their intensity. But we need to find a way to be even keel through those. Obviously, Stanley gets hit, we don't like that, we try to respond, and then we lose our game. And, we need to do a better job in all facets.
In this stretch of kind of toughness that you guys are going through, the adversity, do you see little details that need to be stacked and changed and learned from, or is it kind of a big message as a whole to be learned from?
Yeah, I think it's more of a holistic picture at this point. Sure, there are always little details here and there, but it's like the boat's taken on water. We plug one hole, another hole opens. So, we need to really look at our game as a whole and our attitude and how we approach it, and whether winning matters to us.
Penalty kill continues to be really strong. What are you seeing out of you guys being able to be so strong, especially against the 6th best power play in the league?
Yeah, that's great. It's all well and good, but unfortunately, we didn't win tonight. So not to discount the question, but it's a blip on the radar. We have a lot of other issues. So.
From your experience, what do you want to share to this group from your experience throughout the league moving forward?
Listen, we talk after every game. We talk as a team. We talk, and we do a lot of talking. But we need to put stuff into practice. We need to take action on some of these things. And it's really disappointing to see some of the reactions that we have to adversity. listen, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be instances where the team scores or we score and they score. Okay, fine. But we need to be able to get back to our game right away, and we tend to deviate a little too often.
So back at it on Saturday with the New York Rangers. It'll be a 7 p.m. face-off. We'll be on the air here on the KSL Sports Zone at 6. But don't miss today's edition of Mammoth Daily, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, on the Utah Mammoth Team YouTube page, or SEG Plus. Mike and I going to have our Friday free-for-all. We had some fans stop by the booth before the game on Thursday. We'll have them involved. We'll have our local hockey roundup. We'll check in on Utah prospect Tej Aginla as well. So make a habit of joining me and Mike Folta Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes or so for your daily edition of Mammoth Daily, again, wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, a good weekend, and hope to see you at Delta Center coming up on Saturday.
There is the best of the post-game show as the Mammoth fall again. A reminder to join Hans and Scotty today from noon to 3 at RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. DJ and PK, we're taking a break. We come back with Barry Tramel talking Big 12 football, talking BYU and Cincinnati. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined now by Barry Tramel, columnist for the Tulsa World. Barry, good morning.
How's things in Salt Lake?
Tense. College football fans are on the edge of their seats. There's 2 weeks left, and who are the first two teams below the line and outside of the college football playoff? BYU at 11 and Utah at 12. There's tension, Barry.
Probably pretty good ratings for that Tuesday night show, and good ratings in Salt Lake for that Tuesday night show.
Well, yeah, we're looking at it and to the level of what's fair, what isn't fair, head-to-head and all that stuff. I think that once you involve a committee, it turns into a beauty contest. And the thing that we've been talking about is that my line of thinking is the committee chairman comes out and says that BYU, they're with only one loss, is down a little bit behind some two-loss teams, obviously. And he says, well, the game against Texas Tech didn't look good, right? That's the quote. The way it looked. He used that verb look and looked in the past tense because that's what it is. All right. So I'll take him at his word and the way it looked. So my line of thinking is if the Cougars go ahead and beat Cincinnati back there and then come home next week and close out the regular season against UCF and then they get into the game in Arlington, the standard now established by the committee is look good, not win. It's look good. So all they have to do is go to Arlington on a neutral field, and it's all with quotes around it because it's not easy. But all they have to do is make that game look good according to the words of the leader of the committee. I don't see how you argue. I made that statement this morning, and I wanted to leave because I said I won the argument. There's no reason for me to continue the show till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, here's the problem. The problem is you got 13, or I guess no, we're down to 11. We can't keep people on the committee. They're dropping like flies. But you got 11 people in there voting, and then one guy has to go and explain the vote. And the PR nature, the presentation of these rankings is problematic in my mind. I think there's a lot of things with the format of the selections I'm not crazy about either. But just the TV show itself is problematic. We might be better off. A lot of people say don't have any rankings, which that may be a valid thing. I'd almost be better off not having anybody explain them because it just makes us madder, right? It doesn't bring any clarity. It brings more confusion. The more they talk, the more confused we are. Like down here in Oklahoma, the chief thing seems to be, and this is actually very much relatable to BYU and Utah. They don't seem to care near as much about your wins as they do your losses. Like the idea that Notre Dame would be ahead of Alabama, it's sort of silly when you just look at the people they've beaten. But Alabama lost to Florida State. Turns out there's a bad loss. And they don't like to forgive people for bad losses, no matter how many good teams you beat. And Notre Dame hadn't beaten anybody of substance except USC, turns out. So they love themselves, the people who avoid bad losses and have fewer losses. So I think those are the keys that what we've learned from them, as sort of the same way last year. So I like your deal about Brigham Young. I think that's valid. I'm sure I've said this before with you guys, but the thing that drives me bananas is, when they start using statistical analysis, when they start talking about, watching the games. They're proud of the iPads they walk around with. I think people say, well, you need more coaches on there. We need fewer coaches on there. We need more plumbers, and we need more history teachers, and we need more insurance salesmen. We need more people who just make basic, everyday, common sense decisions every day, throughout the week. And we need people who don't fancy themselves as football experts. We're not trying to build a team. We're not doing an NFL draft. Trying to gauge what football teams have done the most to get into the playoff, and the committee seems to have a struggle with that.
One thing that would help both BYU and Utah if the teams in the top 10 lost. Now, 3 of them are on byes, and 4 or 5 of them have what look to be pretty lopsided or completely lopsided matchups. Alabama, Eastern Illinois were all on the edge of their chair for that thing. But there are a couple good games here. USC is at Oregon, 7th-ranked Oregon. That's a good test. 8-2 USC at 9-1 Oregon. And then your Oklahoma Sooners. We assigned them to you. You're in Oklahoma and we're not, so they're now yours. Are hosting the Missouri Tigers, who are 7-3, 3-3 in the SEC. Could Missouri go into Norman and win the game, and Oklahoma with a third loss might tumble then and open the door for somebody like BYU or Utah?
Oh, absolutely. That could happen, and if they lose, it will happen in terms of everybody moves up. And it should happen. I mean, a playoff team or a would-be playoff team that loses at home to a good but not great Missouri team playing without its quarterback doesn't deserve a playoff berth, I don't think. So, the problem we got, and this is not unfair in this specific instance because I think that's valid, but we're back to the old days where you just hope people ahead of you lose so that you can move up. And that's very reminiscent of the old AP poll days when if you were number 7 at this time of the year, you needed people to tumble because you couldn't win your way past a lot of teams. So, but yeah, the USC, Oregon, and Oklahoma, Missouri, it's a shame here. This is the this is the 4th Saturday in November. And we got a slate of games. The way that we've got is just an abomination. A lot of people on the bye. A lot of people playing the rum-dums. The Big 12 is not engaging much in that. Tech, I think, is off this week. Tech and whoever else, West Virginia or somebody. But we don't have that many good games. I don't understand it. So we have to take what we can get. But, yeah, BYU, listen, no offense taken from the fine folks of Utah praying the rosary for Missouri this week. We understand. They're all card-carrying members of the USC and Missouri fan clubs. And, good luck to the Cougars and the Utes. They're going to have it's pretty clear to me that the committee likes Utah. The Utes have been waxing people so bad. They like it when they like teams that win big. They like you to avoid defeat, but when it comes to victory, they like teams that dominate. When maybe they should, and Utah's been doing that. That crazy Utah offense is a runaway mine train. So they like Utah a lot, and it's going to be tough for the Utes without BYU losing. It's going to be tough for Utah to gain much traction. So I guess for Utah, of course, wishes nothing but ill will on BYU this week, in addition to the ill will they do every week. But now I have not looked this up, but I read it. Is it true? The 5-way tie scenario puts Utah in Arlington. Is that right?
I do not know that.
A 5-way?
5-way. If BYU loses to Cincinnati,
yeah,
and everybody else wins out, including BYU and Utah, I don't think any of them play each other the rest of the year. So we'd have a 5-way tie at 5-2. I mean, at 7-2. BYU, Utah, Cincinnati, Arizona State, and whoever I'm leaving out.
Houston.
So I think strength of schedule becomes the criteria, and I think Utah advances. And that's not a crazy scenario. We just need BYU to lose to Cincinnati, and it very well could happen.
Yes.
And in that instance, Utah gets a swing at Texas Tech, and the Utes would have to win. But a lot of people like Utah. I think that might be a better way for Utah to get in than just hoping they move up by osmosis.
Yes, I think that this game at Cincinnati Saturday is the deciding game because we don't see BYU losing to UCF. And so if they beat Cincinnati, because they got UCF at home to close out the season, essentially they clinch without clinching, and then everybody else doesn't have a chance. But if they lose to Cincinnati, then it's on. It's a bunch of stuff that could go crazy. Yeah, I suppose maybe in the Utes losing at Kansas, who knows? But that's why we're looking forward to this game, because it without literally and using the word essentially replacing that, that's what we look like we have Saturday night.
Yeah. What time's BYU Cincinnati? That's 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock your time, yeah.
7 o'clock. Okay, that's good. I'll get home in time to see that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the better games. It might be the third best game. I assume it is the third most in terms of ranking of the teams. That's the number 3 game in America.
Impact on the race to be the second team in the Big 12. It's in our area of the country, it's huge. In other places, it would be knocked down a peg or two. I think SC in Oregon, but I'm an old Pac-12, Pac-10 guy, so I still have those biases.
Yeah, but I think based on the poll this year, that's a huge game. And I think the other question has to be answered, what does USC look like when they win, and how much credit they get, and how high do they vault up based on that victory?
Oh, I think
here's what you got. Here's what you got in Oklahoma. The Sooner fans are torn between their eternal hatred of Lincoln Riley and wanting to lose everything, including his walk to the mailbox. They want him, he'd step off the curb and break an ankle. But if they could win and squirm their way into the standings, and the Sooners could win out, is there a way we could have a final ranking of 7 and 10?
Yes.
Or 8 and 9? And then all of a sudden, the Trojans are sent to Norman, Oklahoma.
I would love it.
Oh, my goodness. Let me tell you something. That would be the closest thing we'd ever see to the Roman Coliseum. I promise you. And nobody's got their thumbs up, I tell you. So,
yeah, they should do that. We know they do it in the NCAA's basketball. Put a little drama on top of the actual matchup. Why not?
Yeah, so that would be a wild one. What's crazy, though, is the 2 prime slots, TV-wise, for the first round of the playoffs, ESPN has sold to TNT. So the Saturday afternoon and the Saturday night playoff games are on TNT, which I find fascinating. I don't know why they didn't sell on the Saturday morning game and maybe the Friday night game. But we're talking so I don't even know where the marquee matchups would be. We're going to have 2 dud games, it looks like. In the first round of the playoffs, we'll have that the mid-major, so Tulane or James Madison, whoever it is, And then whoever comes out of the ACC, Virginia or Georgia Tech's going to play. That's going to be a really good game if Virginia goes to Alabama. Virginia will hang tough and get beat 34-3. So we got 2 duds in the playoff coming. So I'm anxious to see how they divvy those up with TNT and ESPN, considering TNT has the Saturday afternoon and Saturday night games.
I think they got those games because I'll bet those are the times that compete with NFL games, which they assume will hold the ratings down.
That's probably right. Maybe they'll give them James Madison and Virginia. That could put OU USC at the early kickoff on Saturday or the Friday night game. Because there'll be another good game. Ole Miss playing, So I don't know who might be Ole Miss and Notre Dame, whoever. It's going to be a half and half deal. But no, hey, listen, Brigham Young at Cincinnati is one of the coolest matchups of all time because of the differences in the schools and the settings and the football programs and all that. You go to the Wasatch Mountains and you go to Lavelle Edwards Stadium and you sit there and you got this glorious scene. You got the mountain, you got the Y up on the side of the mountain. You got some snow-capped stuff. It's just a glorious setting, one of the best in college football. And you go to Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati, and you feel like you're like in, Michigan Avenue in Chicago or Times Square. You're right in the middle of a massive city. You've got skyscrapers in the background. You got the school. You got the university campus all around you. I've never seen a stadium so shoehorned into a place. You can be standing like in the seat, and you can be sitting in a seat at Nippert Stadium, and you're like 75 feet from the student union. You're like 50 feet from the campus wellness center. I mean, they just cram this little stadium right in between a bunch of buildings. Now, that's not really true because they built it 120 years ago. But it's just an unbelievable urban setting, and it's really cool. I like both places, but they are just so vastly different. The BYU fans, I think, are really going to find it interesting playing at Cincinnati. They call it the Wrigley Field of college football. I don't know that Cub fans call it that, but Cincinnati fans call it that. So that's going to be a cool setting and a really good game. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
From a long way away and a different vibe than us, do you feel like BYU gets it done on the road? Cincinnati's coming off back-to-back losses, just a soul-crushing beating at Utah. And at home, I think, probably you expect them, if they're who they want to be, they expect them to bounce back against Arizona. But Arizona seems to be on the rise, and Arizona gets them. So I'm wondering what kind of effort and confidence Cincinnati brings to this game.
Well, I think Cincinnati will play well, or I don't think effort's going to be a problem. I do think they played a little over their head, though. I do think they're not as good maybe as their record indicates. I think they've done a nice job producing a really good season. I'm very encouraged by what they've done. But I think Brigham Young's a better team. And I think BYU, I don't know if Tech provided a wake-up call, but Brigham Young looked like a different team against TCU. I mean, TCU's not great, and they're just sort of a solid team. But they generally play everybody tough. They go down to the wire with Iowa State, go down to the wire with Arizona State. They go down to the wire with Baylor. That's just, they're just a good team that plays people tough, and win some, lose some. And BYU took them to the woodshed.
Yeah.
And that was a mismatch. And it looked to me like Brigham Young just sort of woke up because it had been driving along that pathway of, doing okay, but really toying with some teams they shouldn't toy with. And it looked like they got a good wake-up call. And so I think Brigham Young will go to Cincinnati and take care of business. and come back to Provo with a chance to make the playoff.
Barry, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us and talking a little football.
Hey, see you guys later.
There's Barry Tramel. A reminder to nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us to celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. DJ, PK, and BYU beat writer for the Deseret News. Jay Drew joins us once again. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
Jay, big game. How big? PK's been hyping it. Biggest game ever. It'd be the worst loss. It'd be the best win. Would you like to throw any cold water into that at all? I mean, you got to be feeling some of it.
Yeah, I think it's up there. I mean, I think we were saying the same thing before the Texas Tech game, and everybody, locally knows how that went. So, but yeah, there's probably the highest stakes, probably the most on the line for BYU. And it just every game this season, it seems like it's kind of ramped up that way as it's gradually moved up, where they've basically now put themselves in a situation where a loss would be absolutely devastating to their season, to their college football playoff hopes, to the Big 12 championship game hopes. So it's up there. It's one of the most important in program history, at least in the Kalani Sitake era. If we were to put it that way, I think you wouldn't take anything away from the 1984 national championship bowl game that won them the national championship and other things. But at least in the Kalani Sitake era, I got to think this is probably the biggest game.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that if they lose it, it's, oh my gosh, they're 9-2 and the season sucks. But that's sort of where they're at, and we'll see. And hopefully for their sakes they win. I think that one of the things that was more, not maybe most impressive, but just impressive to me is clearly the Texas Tech loss was a deflating loss, and the manner in which they lost too. You can play them tough, and somebody's got to win, so you can still find some positives. And I suppose you can find a little bit of positive in their defense from that game, but it certainly was a downer. And then not just beating TCU, which is a halfway decent team, but dominating TCU. That was, from their perspective, as I looked at their team, a pleasant surprise to me that they owned that game basically from start to finish, which I don't know can restore completely the confidence you had going into the Texas Tech game, but goes a long way to where going back to Cincinnati, they should have a fair amount of confidence, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, watching them walk off the field there in Lubbock, my personal thought was that, man, this might spiral. The TCU game all of a sudden becomes incredibly important, and it looked like some of their confidence was nicked. Everybody except Chase Roberts, I guess should say, because he boldly said that we're going to see these guys again in the college football championship game, and so I think you're right, PK. That was very, very impressive what they were able to do against TCU. They kept their focus. Bear Bachmeier bounced back. He showed a lot in that game. I think in the past, maybe some BYU quarterbacks would have started panicking a little bit, maybe not trusting their offensive line as much, not trusting some of the receivers. But Bear was he did run a little bit more than he did in the Texas Tech game, but he picked his spots. He looked absolutely great. He made a brilliant fake on one play that got him into the end zone with the fake pitch. So, this team has really good leadership. I know that's kind of a cliche and coaches throw out there a lot, but just from my own personal perspective, you got guys like Tanner Wall, and I mentioned Chase Roberts and Bruce Mitchell on the offensive line, and just you can go kind of down the list. But this is a team that seems to be able to handle adversity a little bit better than maybe some BYU teams in the past, including last year's where they lost to Kansas and they fell at Arizona State. So, I think they're well equipped to go into Cincinnati and make a much better showing than they did the last time out on the road.
Are you surprised that the line is like 2.5 points? What are people seeing? Because everything you said makes sense to me. It's stuff we've talked about. Before you came on the air, it all lines up, and all of that lines up to BYU wins by 7, 10, 14. I don't know. Maybe there's some late score. Who knows? But BYU wins at least semi-comfortably, not dramatically. But that's not what a bunch of the gamblers are seeing, so maybe they're seeing something that I'm missing. What am I missing?
Yeah, I've thought about that quite a bit, too. I think, first of all, Cincinnati playing at home for the second straight week. So there's got to be some comfort level there. They weren't blown out by Arizona. If you watch that game, they were in it to the end. They had a few things go against them. Also, from what I hear, I'm not an expert on Cincinnati's roster, but they're getting 2 key players back. I think they're getting their second leading receiver, I want to say, and maybe even either their first or second leading running back. So they're getting 2 key offensive weapons back. And then, home field advantage. They got big noon kickoff is going to be there, so that's going to rile everybody up. And in Lubbock, that was crazy. That crowd was one of the most, just, I don't want to say hostile, but just wound up crowds coming off, college game day being there in Lubbock. So home field advantage, I tell people this all the time, is really big in college sports. I think it's biggest in basketball. I think that's where the advantage is the biggest. But in football, there is something to that as well. And I think Cincinnati's been looking forward to this game all season. I think the crowd will be pretty hyped. So I think there's some things that work in Cincinnati's favor. On paper, I think BYU is the more talented team. I think Cincinnati's quarterback Sorsby has been nicked up a little bit, and maybe a kind of a minor disappointment as opposed to how Bear Bachmeier has played for BYU. So I think I can kind of see, especially because it's a road game for the Cougars, why they're not a bigger favorite.
One of the things, if not the biggest thing that dismayed about the Texas Tech loss was the amount of mistakes that BYU had made with obviously the punt situations, and you had drop passes, and that was stuff that we knew had been very much minimized in their other games, their close games, as they were able to make plays. Other teams were making mistakes. A level of concern that you might have that would be repeated, because that could be very detrimental to them having an opportunity to win this game.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sure they've focused on that. Being down there at practice, they've pumped in the crowd noise a lot this week, and they did before the Texas Tech game. But I remember after the game that I think it was A-Rod, it might have been Kalani, that said they had a lot of trouble with the communication because of the crowd noise, with getting the play calls in to bear. And A-Rod said the other day that they think they've got that figured out, sorted out, and they'll be able to handle that more effectively than they did in Lubbock. I doubt it'll be as crazy and loud and raucous as it was in Lubbock, but Cincinnati Stadium isn't as big. Obviously, for the Bearcats, the stakes aren't as high, but that's certainly one thing they've got to figure out. Those false starts will kill you when you get behind the chains. That's kind of where the biggest impact I think the crowd makes. But then you can't make any, botched punts on special teams like they did right off the bat that really put them in a hole early and got the crowd into it. So, yeah, I think that's going to be huge for BYU. You just can't shoot yourselves in the foot. And if you don't do that, I think you're in a pretty good spot where you can pull this one out.
There've been a lot of expectations put on JoJo Phillips. He's a redshirt sophomore, and he still doesn't have 20 career catches. But, man, you just have to watch the guy walk across the field. I mean, he looks like a wide receiver is supposed to look, right? And he's 6'5", and it does feel like he could break out at some point in a game that could be close. You know, I know he had the drop at Texas Tech, but honestly, catching one more pass was not going to turn that game around. Has he had a couple weeks to scrape the rust off? Do you expect more out of him, or is this a little bit of a lost year? He's been out so long, and maybe expect big things out of him next year, or could he make a big play in this one? And what's your sense of where he is?
Yeah, I think they still have a lot of confidence in him. For that Monday weekly press briefing, they had him come out or talk to the media, which I think shows quite a bit that they still have a lot of confidence in him. A-Rod was asked about that Tuesday, and he said, JoJo was a lot better in Game 2 than he was in Game 1 in his comeback after missing 6 games. He's a confident kid. I think he'll be fine. He grew up more of a basketball player than a football player, and so he. I'm not saying that's, he's not a natural receiver because he's obviously had 2 or 3 years to kind of get acclimated to the college system. But I think they still have full confidence in him, and I think he's going to have a couple of good games here on the finish. Obviously, their top 2 guys are Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, and then Cody Hagan might be back. I think he's listed as probable on the injury report that came out last night. So throw all that together. I think JoJo will have a few more catches that he's had leading into the game in the next 2 games, but he clearly isn't one of the top 2 priorities for Bear Bachmeier. And I'd even say that probably the 3rd priority would be Carson Ryan, the tight end. So I think that might be good for JoJo, where he's not focused on by opposing defenses. But I think coaches still have a lot of confidence in him and are always talking about his upside. But if you're on his side, it's time to put up or shut up. They've been talking about him for a long time, like you said, David. And now's the time to prove everybody in Cougar Blue right that he does have that great potential to be a big time college receiver.
I think last year on the defensive side, the breakout star was Isaiah Glasker. Now this year, can we say the same about Satawala?
I think so. The guy's a playmaker. He's made some great plays this year. Really, the play at Iowa State might have won that game for him. The way that game was going, the pick 6, and then obviously the pick the other day against TCU. But speaking of a guy who just looks like a college football player when he's out on the field for a safety, just has the size and the way he moves. He's a blossoming superstar, I think, and yeah, I think he's going to have a great career at BYU. Well, he's already on the path, but he's really a kid that's blossomed a lot. When he came into the program, he was really shy and not real. I don't want to say not friendly to the media, but he just didn't like to talk a lot. But now he's really comfortable in that role as well, and you can tell he's looked up to by his teammates, kind of one of those team leaders, even though this is just his 2nd year. So, yeah, I think the sky's the limit for that kid. I think if you look at BYU's roster, you start to wonder which of these kids can go on and play in the NFL. And I would think Satawala is right up there near the top of one of those guys that seemingly has all the tools that maybe can make it at the next level.
Because you're around the team so much, is there anybody else you're looking for to step up here late in the year? You think somebody might be on the verge of breaking out that the public isn't quite up to speed on, but you've heard about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I keep telling people they need another running back. They need somebody to step up there and help LJ Martin out a little bit. Obviously, with the injuries to Sione Moa and then Hinckley Rapati didn't get the year back, and the running back situation's been well documented. So I keep thinking, maybe it'll be Preston Rex. Last week against TCU, they went a lot with Enoch Nawahini. Not a lot, but when LJ needed a bit of a rest. So off the top of my head, I really can't think of anybody. I think it's curious that they haven't really found a second tight end to throw the ball to after kind of a fast start. They threw it to other tight ends besides Carson Ryan. So, but I think Carson Ryan's even going to get a bigger workload moving forward. So I would probably say him. We saw a lot more in the TCU game out of him, and I think moving forward, they're going to really rely on him a lot, especially with that red zone offense is so huge in college football. Is getting touchdowns instead of field goals. And when you look at that, and when teams start to key on L.J. Martin down down when they're inside the 20, I think you really need a guy like Carson Ryan, the tight end, kind of like Isaac Rex used to do, where you can get a guy that's bigger, can handle a little pressure from a defensive back and get open in that tight space in the red zone. And so I guess I would say Carson Ryan, look for him to have a big finish to the season.
Kevin Young in his media availability said he knows exactly what happened with Kennard Davis, and he's going to let the university speak. What do you know about it as far as what happened?
Yeah, I mean, first I got to say I've heard a ton of rumors and people saying things. I was there, or this person told me this and all that. So, me personally, I'm trying to stick to the police report and the court documents. So, but I have heard that if Kevin Young wasn't there when the accident happened, he was on the scene almost immediately. So, when he says I know exactly what happened, I think that's where he's coming from. Nowhere in the police report does it, the one that was actually the parts of it that were issued by Provo Police Department, does it say who caused the accident? Does it say anything about the other driver who received the ticket for causing the accident? It's curious that Kennard Davis did not receive a ticket, even though there was a 2-car crash. He was not cited for improper lookout or reckless driving or whatever. So, I only know really for sure what's been released in the police report yet. And, there are other rumors out there. You guys probably heard them. There were other players in the vehicle. That's not in the police report. So as of right now, it's just one of those things that I think we just have to be patient and kind of wait until this information trickles out through the court system, and then go from there.
Their team seems really shallow depth-wise, so that could be a fairly decent blow.
Yeah, they also lost Nate Pickens, the transfer from UC Riverside. And now obviously with Kennard Davis, and then Keba Keita suffered some sort of a head injury. I guess you could call it a concussion. So Kevin said yesterday that Keba is showing good progress, or there's more positives than negatives. But I think if he's in concussion protocol after an injury that happened last Saturday, that it would be asking a lot for him to return. So suddenly they don't have a lot of depth, at least from the guys that have played so far. They've got a pretty good bench, but guys that are really, really untested, including the freshman Xavion Staton. So, the game against Wisconsin Friday is probably going to be pretty tough for BYU, given where their shape of their roster right now.
Can AJ DeBonsa just put the cape on and just carry him? Just hop on Superman and let him. Let him ride. Yeah,
UConn. He's got to start faster. He's started fairly slowly in really all 4 games, even against Villanova in Las Vegas. So, and I think I think they've had a lot of time this summer to put in plays for him, to give him the isolation plays, whatever, to get him the ball, to get him free in space. So. Yeah, you would think this Friday afternoon, 2 p.m., kind of an odd start time for a college basketball game at the Delta Center. But 2 p.m. Friday, I think a lot will be on his shoulders to kind of carry the load with those other guys out.
Jay, you're the man. We appreciate it as always. You headed back to Cincinnati?
Yeah, heading to Cincinnati tomorrow, and be the second time. I was there, whatever it was, 8 years ago, when Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams pulled out a win. I think it was 21-3 win. The big thing I remember from that game is Tommy Tuberville, who's now, I think he's a U.S. Senator now. He was Cincinnati's coach. And after the game was over,
he got into it with fans.
He got into it with a fan, and you remember, you guys, as you covered a lot of games in your careers, you kind of remember odd things about games, and that's what sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, I remember it, and I wasn't even there.
Yeah. All right, Jay, we appreciate it. Have a good trip.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
There is Jay Drew. What is trending? The headlines are next.